Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Uh, so I just finished my lunch, so I am coughing a little. It was a bit salty, but I hope everybody had a nice lunch and you are ready for more React. This is going to be the last React lecture, and tomorrow Mats will continue. So we can start with questions. If somebody has a question about the things we have looked at this far. No question or no questions. I hope that this is a good introduction for you, so that you will want to use React in your last your final project. And like I said before, in order to do that, you will need an API, and that is something that you will learn with Mats, and so that you can use, because you need both, because React is only working in the browser, and then you need a server, which we will start, I think tomorrow, or very soon at least. You will start with server programming, and then you will see how the two are connected together. And now, today in this lecture, we are going to look at the very simple or a basic connection with an API, so that you can at least see how it works. And then you will get another example from Mats later on, maybe at the end of this week or next week. But the essence of it is the same. What you want to do is you want your React app, or it doesn't have to be a React app. It can be just JavaScript. It can be just an HTML page with JavaScript, and the JavaScript can send a request to the server, and the server responds with data. And then your JavaScript code will get that data and display it on the web page. So you don't, if you want to do an API project, you don't necessarily have to use React. You can do it without React. You can do it with JavaScript. Because even if you use React, the part of your app that connects to the server is JavaScript. So the part that is React is only concerned with what is displayed on the screen. But the communication between your app and the server is independent of React. So you can use, so you use JavaScript. So if you want, you can make your entire app just with JavaScript without React. So you have that option too for your final project. So first, we're going to look at two things now. We're going to look at how to, if we have data in an array, how we can display it on the page using the map function of the array. And let me just start out by, I'm just going to paste an array with some data into the chat so you can copy it from there and use it in the coming example. So let me just paste this piece of code. It's just an array, so just copy it and use it in your in the example that we are going to look at now. So that we have some data to work with. So this is a JavaScript array where the elements are JavaScript objects. So every element in this array is a JavaScript object. And this resembles the structure of the data that you get from an API. This, when your app is communicating with an API, the data you get back is similar to this. So I am going to create a new file that I can work with.
Yes, can you share your screen?
Yes, I will share my screen. I'm just going to paste this and let me share my screen. Here we are. I have to save this. As an HTML file, and I will, this is this morning's lecture, so I will just delete the code and just keep this structure that we need so we can work with React. And I will get this array too. So I paste this array into my code. And So here we see that the data, the variable data, is a normal JavaScript array, and every element is an object. So we have the first object here, we have the second object here, and so on. And every object has three attributes: ID, name, and image URL. And this is the data that we can use to display, or this is the information that we want to display on the web page. And to do that, we will use a function called map on the array object. And map is a loop that visits every element in the array. So instead of creating a loop, a while loop or a for loop, to go through all the elements and do something with them, you just write the name of the array dot map, and then you use that, and then you put a function into the parentheses. Your function goes here. So you add a function in the parentheses, and this function is going to do something with every element. So it will visit every element in the array, and this function of yours will decide what will happen with the elements. And you will recognize this from LINQ. It looks a little bit like LINQ. It uses lambda expressions. So you will see those similarities. And you can also see, and map, you can also see the similarities between map and the LINQ functions. For example, if you take where in C#, where is also, you can also look at where as a loop. And then you write dot where, and then you put your condition in parentheses. And the where function will visit every element in your list or array or whatever you are using. So you can look at it as a loop in this case too. And that is what map does. So if you haven't seen the function map before, think of it as a loop that visits every element in the array. Another thing that I have to mention is that map returns an array with the new data. And the new data is the data that this function here has created. So when you visit an element with the map function, this function here, with function x, this function will take a hold of that element and then do something with it, which is what you will program into the function. And all those new, let's say that it will change it somehow. It will change the data somehow, or it will add something to it, or remove something from it, but it will change the data somehow. And that way you will create a new array. And map will actually return this array. So actually, when you call it like this. So let's say that my array, or let's say data, because our array is called data. So when I call data.map, I have to assign the result to a variable, because it will return a new array. So that is what we are going to do now. We have this data, and we have it in, like I said, an array where every element is an object. So we want to create a component that will display this data for us. And this is a list of football players, so I will call the component player list. It will be a component which is in an arrow function. And it will return data. So let's try this. Oh, sorry, it has to return an element. So it will return data, but if we just leave it like this, it will interpret data as just text. And we don't want that. We want data to be interpreted as JavaScript, so that it will be this variable. If we leave it like this, React will only see the word data and it will print the word data. But if we put the curly brackets around it, then React will know that we actually mean this variable. So let's load this file in the browser. And we get nothing. So we look at the console to see if we have an error message. And yes, we do. I forgot to render the component. So let's try it again. Still nothing. So we look at the new. We have a new error message, hopefully. Yes. And here it says exactly what the problem is. Objects are not valid as React child. Found object with key, ID, name, image, URL. If you meant to render a collection of children, use an array instead. So it is giving us pretty good feedback, and it is telling us that, first of all, if you look at this part here, objects are not valid as React child. So it is complaining about the objects. And we have the objects here. These are the objects. So it's complaining about those objects, and it is telling us that these objects are not valid React children. So they are not components. They cannot be rendered. So we have to do something with them. And here, this is where the map function comes into play. Also notice that the data array is outside of the component. So you can see here that the component, at the moment, the component is only this, these 3 lines, and the data is outside the component. And so, but this is what we call, this is something called scope. And so we can access, if the data variable is outside of a function, then we can access it inside the function. And we can also write the map. We can also write the map function outside of the component, and we will still be able to access it. So let's do that. I will call the new array list, and it will be assigned this value, data.map. And here we will write a lambda expression so this will look a bit like the lambda expression that you use in a link. So we need an object that will represent, we need a variable that will represent the element that we are currently visiting. So player will be the first object. When this loop starts, it will come to the first object. Then this player element will represent this object, and we can do something with it. And what we will do is we will create a JSON code. We will write JSON code. So we will turn this information into, JSX. We will turn the information in these objects into JSX code, so we can display it on the page. So what we are saying is that with every element in the array, do this. And what we will do is this, is we will write JSX code. And we start with an outer div that will contain all the rest of the data. And now we will add the elements that we need. I will use a span here, span element, and inside the element I will put player.id. And of course it has to be inside curly brackets so that it is JavaScript. So now I put the value of this ID attribute into this span tag. I use another span tag for the player name. So again, curly brackets, player dot name. And finally, I will use an image tag, and the source attribute of the image tag will be player dot image URL. So what this does is that it returns an array that will be stored in list. And this every element in this array will have this content. So every element in the array will be JSX code. And now we can display the variable list here. And we should get the entire list. So let's try that. Saving the file. And now I am reloading it. And there are no images. Okay, we will look at that soon. But first, we have another a warning that says each child in the list should have a unique key prop. So each element should have a key property. And this property is something that React needs in order to keep the elements apart, so it can tell the difference between them. And you can add it very easily. You go to the outer element, which is this div, and you can, this contains everything. And here we just add the attribute key, and we give it a value. We have an idea. So we have an idea in our object. So this value fits perfectly for this purpose. And we will add player.id. And because the ID, the values of the ID attribute are unique, every element will have a unique key. And this is something that React likes. Load the page. And we get rid of the error message, but we don't see the images, which is strange. So first, we have to check if these URLs still work. So I will copy it, and I will go directly to, and there we have an image. So this works. So then we have to look at the elements in the inspector and see if this image element is there. We have 4 divs. Let's look at the first one, and we have an image. We have an image tag, but there is nothing inside it. And the question is why? Why doesn't have a source attribute? Where is the error? Let's try. Let's put this in here manually. Let's just add a URL so that we get the same image everywhere. This way it works. So the problem is maybe we need the double quotes.
Ernst, I don't know if you see the chat, but I think before you had the field name wrong, the image URL, it was written wrong. That's why it wasn't working, I think.
Can you say it again?
Before you had the field name image URL wrong written in the source.
Ah.
So maybe that's why it wasn't working. I think now it should work.
Ah.
That's one of the, if you work with coding, it happens all the time. It's all of us. Sometimes it takes hours before figuring it out.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah, so we transformed the data that we had, which was in objects, we transformed it to JSX code. And we still stored it in an array. And because of that, we were able to display it just by this this one line here, because React is able, so list is an array. And you can just pass an array to React and it will, if it can render it, it will. So if it contains a code that it can render, it will render it. So here we didn't have to use a loop, for example, to go through the array to display every element. We just put it in curly brackets and React took care of it for us. So this is one of the things that we were going to look at. The other is fetching data from an API. And we are going to fetch data from GitHub's API. And for that, I will create a new file. So I will copy this code and I will save it in a new file. And I will delete the code that we just used. So we can write some new code. And I will give you the address that we are going to use so that you can use it too. We'll paste it in the chat. So this is the address in the chat to GitHub's API, and we are going to fetch my data from GitHub. So let us start out by getting the data from GitHub. And we do that with the function fetch. And this is a built-in function into JavaScript. And there we put this URL. So this function fetch, it will use the browser to send a request to GitHub's API. So when this line is executed, the browser will send a request to this address, and it will say, send me this information that you have on this address. And then we have the option to do something with the response. So the GitHub server will send us some data, and we handle that data by calling the function then. And here we use another Lambda expression, and this one it's called response. So this variable represents the reply from GitHub. So here is what we will do, what we want to do with the response. We want to stringify it, if I'm not wrong. No, we want to JSON it. So we turn the response into a JSON object. And then we have to be inside a component. So Now we didn't start with a component, but in this case we have to be inside a component. So let's create a component called API data, and it will be assigned an arrow function and we will put this fetch instruction inside the component. And because the reason we have to be inside a component is that because we need a state variable. So let's create that right now. We will call it data, and the setter function will be set data. And it will be assigned this value, react.useState, and it will not get an initial data. It will just create the variable data without any data in it, and also the setter function. And now we can continue to handle the data that we get from the server by calling the setData function here. So these two lines that are called then, these are functions called then, handle the response from GitHub. So it's like it's handed down. Like first we get the information, and then this function gets the information, and then we do something with it. And then when this function is done with it, it passes it to the next function. And then this function does something with it. And in the first case, we get the response. And in this line, on line 23, we turn the response into a JSON object. And the next line, line 24, we call the setter data, the setter function of the state, and it will save this JSON object that has just been created into data. So we should be able to display the variable called data. And let's render the component API data. And let's load this file into the browser. We get nothing. So let's see the console. Uncaught in-promise reference error. Response is not defined. And I misspelled response. And we get, hopefully, another error message. Yes, so objects are not valid as React child. Same error message as before. We are trying to render an object, and it's not possible. We got the same problem in the previous example. So we have to do something with this object so we can render it. And this is how you do it. Here we are dealing with an object which cannot be rendered, so we have to turn the object into a string. And we do that by using the JSON object from JavaScript and calling the stringify function in it and passing in data as a parameter. Let's load the page. And there we have the information that I got from the GitHub API. And you can see that it has the form of a JSON object. So this is how you use, as you see here, the way that we brought the data from the server is pure JavaScript. So this, you don't need React to send a request to an API. You just use JavaScript. But if you use React, then you probably must use this, because otherwise you have no data, because React is only in the web browser. So you need data, and then you have to, and that's why you have to communicate with the server. So any questions? I'm going to upload these two files that we looked at now into the two Teams. And I am here for questions if you have any questions later. And if not, then you will continue with maths tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
Today morning, you gave us an exercise regarding that let's display using prop
Yeah.
for first name and last name. Can you just explain us that once again, if you don't mind, please?
Yeah, sure. Let's see, which one was that? I think it was this one.
4.
Yes. So let me just open this. Oh, I think it is loaded. This is the one. So we have, let me just add first name and last name, so we at least know what is expected of us here. So we have these two fields, and if I type something in them, the data appears under the button, and every change that I make is visible immediately. Even if I enter characters or if I remove characters, it is visible right away. So we have the two divs that are displaying the data are in the same component as the rest of the form. So in order to do an exercise with components, we can move these two divs into a component of their own. And then we will use props to pass the data to them. So we have, let us create a new component. I will do it here, and I will call it let display, and it will be assigned an arrow function. And it will return just one thing, a div it will take props as a parameter, and so in display this component will be displayed here instead of display. Instead of the first div, we will use display, and we will give it a label that will have the value first name, and we will give it data, and that will have the value first name, which is the state variable first name. So now let's put these changes into display, we will, oh no, we don't need a label because we are not using the label here. Actually, the labels are for the input, but okay, let's leave it there for now. So inside these curly brackets, I will use props dot data. So let's try this. Let's reload. And if I enter the name here, we can see that it is still displayed. And this one still works. This one we haven't changed, but we will change it now. So now we see that this component works, so we can display the other one too. Sorry, we can replace the div with the display component. If only I can change the windows. So we will reuse the display component to, actually I will just copy this and paste it over here, and I will change the attribute here to last name, and I will change this to last name as well. And so since we already added the label, let's add the labels too. Let's use the labels, I mean. Props dot label. Let's reload the page. And that looked funny. The labels are not rendered. Because I misspelled the word. My browser is stuck. One moment, please. Yeah, I think this is going to take a while. So I think you get the idea. I can upload this file too so that you get the solution. I think my computer needs to rest.
Yes, thank you. Yes, got an idea.
Okay. So I will upload the two examples that we looked at now and the solution to this exercise. So I am here for questions, and if not, then see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.